Good morning, everyone. My name is Silvia Peppoloni. I am a researcher at the Italian Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology. I'm also president of the International Association for Promoting Geoethics and chair of the Geoethics Commission of the International Union of Geological Sciences. Just few seconds to share my screen. Okay. Perfect. Okay, first of all, I want to express my gratitude to Professor De Tarso and Professor Amancio Novo for their kind invitation to participate in this meeting. Geoethics is a discipline that is gaining increasing attention in the world of geosciences and beyond. And I hope that my brief considerations about 4 of the topics proposed in this second Geoethics event in Brazil help introduce and inspire your discussion. We live in a time of a great change and global challenges. On the one hand, environmental pressures grow with the increasing population, demand for resources, and the acceleration of technological innovation. On the other hand, the consequences of these developments, climate change, environmental degradation, and rising social inequality, pose crucial questions. How can we use the planet's resources responsibly, respecting both the environment and the people who depend on it, including the respect for social justice? How can we mitigate the risks associated with geological phenomena that can devastate our home and livelihoods in a matter of minutes? And how can we protect our geological and natural heritage so that the future generations can also benefit from it? This is where geoethics comes into play. Well, but what we mean with geoethics, what are its objectives, its values? This definition of geoethics that is now recognized by the major geoscience organizations in the world clearly explains its meaning, its values, and purposes. Geoethics is the research and reflection on principles and values which underpin appropriate behaviors and practices wherever human activities interact with the Earth system. Moreover, geoethics deals with the ethical, social, and cultural implications of geoscience knowledge, education, research, practice, and communication, and with the social role and responsibilities of geoscientists. And further on, geoethics deals with ways of creating a global ethics framework for guiding individual and social human behaviors while considering human relational domains, plurality of human needs and visions, planetary boundaries, and geo-ecological tipping points. So, in simple terms, geoethics is not just a theoretical reflection, but a practical guide for action. It invites us to rethink our relationship with the Earth and to consider the consequences of our geological choices, both from human and environmental perspective. Geoethics starts from the recognition of a fundamental fact. The Earth is a finite system. The resources it provides are not limitless, and the way we use them has consequences that extend far beyond our immediate well-being. Therefore, we must confront complex dilemmas which concern not only ecological sustainability, but also intergenerational equity. What kind of planet do we want to leave to future generations? This question leads us to the core of the ethical issue. Science alone cannot answer all the questions related to the responsible use of resources. We need shared values, guiding principles that help us navigate a world characterized by uncertainties and interdependencies. Geoethics offers us these principles, encouraging geologists, policymakers, and civil society to work together toward development that is sustainable, inclusive, and just. At the heart of geoethics is responsibility. As you know, in geoethics, responsibility is analyzed through 4 ethical domains of interaction: the individual domain, the interpersonal one, the society, including future generations, and the environment. In short, it is the responsibility we have as human beings toward our planet and its complexity. It is the responsibility to ensure that the use of natural resources does not cause irreparable harm to the environment, and that the benefits derived from geological activities are distributed fairly. It is also the responsibility to listen to local communities, respecting their cultures, their needs, and rights. Another key aspect in geoethics is transparency. In a world where economic interests often prevail over collective ones, geoethics reminds us of the need for decisions that are clear, honest, and grounded in scientific data. The choices we make regarding land use, resource extraction, or risk management must be based on open and informed communication, ensuring that all stakeholders are involved in the decision-making processes, local communities included. In summary, geoethics is not just a theoretical reflection, but a concrete commitment to promoting a more conscious and responsible approach to using Earth's resources. It is a call to action for geoscientists and for all those who care about the future of our planet. The path toward a more ethical and sustainable world is undoubtedly complex, but necessary, and it is a path we can only navigate if we collectively commit to placing ethics at the center of our choices. One of the most contentious issues that geoethics continues to address is the relationship with the mining industry. This is a topic of great global relevance today, raising crucial questions on both environmental and social fronts, as well as on our personal level. In an increasingly interconnected world, dependent on natural resources, mining plays a fundamental role in the economy, but it also presents significant challenges in terms of environmental sustainability, social justice, and respect for the rights of local communities. Geoethics provide an ethical framework to address these challenges. Grounded in values of responsibility, transparency, and respect for the environment, geoethics encourages to consider not only the technical effectiveness of extractive activities, but also the broader consequences of our choices as geologists on people, ecosystems, and territories. So, how does geoethics apply to mining? First, geoethics urges us to carefully assess the environmental impacts of mining operations. Mines often disrupt ecosystems, degrade soils, and pollute water resources. leaving an environmental legacy that can persist for generations. Geoethics requires that every decision in this sector be made with a long-term perspective, aiming to minimize harm and prioritize environmental restoration once extractive activities are completed. Second, geoethics mandates respect for the rights of local communities. Too often, populations living near mining sites are the first to suffer the negative effects: forced relocations, loss of natural resources, and air and water pollution. An ethical approach to mining involves dialogue, ensuring active participation, and genuinely engaging community in decisions that affect their future. Geoethics also encourages us to rethink the concept of intergenerational justice. Mineral resources are limited and belong not only to our generations, but also to future ones. We must ensure that resource extraction is conducted responsibly with policies that promote equity, conservation, and mindful use of these resources to sustain the world for future generations. Finally, it is essential that transparency and integrity guide extractive activities. Corruption, lack of accountability, and opacity in decision-making undermine not only public trust, but also the potential for sustainable development. Geoethics calls on companies and governments to operate with a strong sense of social responsibility, ensuring that mining operations serve the collective good, not just economic interests. I'm aware that these aspects needs a paradigm change. In conclusion, geoethics is not a luxury or a marginal addition to industrial practices, but it is an urgent necessity also for mining companies in order to improve societal trust. In an era where natural resources are being exploited at unprecedented rates, we must adopt an approach that places ethics at the core of our decisions. Only then can we balance economic needs with environmental and social considerations, creating a more just and sustainable future for all. And I invite all of you to read the IAPG paper on responsible mining, that is an orienting document that analyzes mining through the lens of geoethics. Well, another crucial theme that deeply impacts our lives, which geoethics has addressed from the very beginning, is geological risk. We live on a dynamic planet, constantly evolving and subject to natural forces that can sometimes result in devastating events. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslides, tsunamis, floods. These occurrences, integral to Earth's natural processes, frequently remind us of our vulnerability in the face of our planet's power. While such geological phenomena are inevitable, we must ask ourselves, what role does ethics play in how we confront these events? How can we act to mitigate associated risks, protect people, and preserve our environment? Geoethics encourages us to reflect on the impact of our choices on the land and to make responsible decisions grounded in shared values and scientific knowledge. It teaches us that we cannot view geological phenomena as purely natural events. Very often, their effects are amplified by the choices we make regarding land use. Building in high-risk areas, lack of prevention plans, and misinformation can transform a natural event into a human tragedy. In this sense, how we manage these phenomena is not just a geological issue, but also an ethical one. Managing geological risks requires a multidisciplinary approach that includes not only science, but also ethics and social responsibility. Geoscientists, in particular, play a critical role. They possess the technical expertise to understand natural phenomena, but they also bear the responsibility to effectively communicating the associated risks to decision makers and the communities potentially affected. Consider prevention, for example, that set of actions, interventions, and measures aimed at risk reduction. Geologists know that it is possible to reduce damage through constructing adequate infrastructure, mapping risk areas, and implementing warning systems. However, this knowledge must be applied with a sense of ethical responsibility. Also, clearness is essential. Information about geological risks must be communicated clearly and accessibly, ensuring that communities can understand and prepare accordingly. The participation of local communities is another key element that geoethics emphasizes in risk prevention and mitigation. People living in high-risk areas must be actively involved in decision-making processes related to their safety. Too often, decisions about mitigation strategies are made without consulting the directly affected population. Geoethics calls for ensuring that their voices are heard, their rights are respected, their local knowledge is valued. This is a matter of epistemic justice. Moreover, we must not forget that resources for prevention and management of geological risks are often not equitably distributed. Social and economic inequalities profoundly affect the impact of a geological phenomenon. The most vulnerable populations, often those with less access to safe buildings, infrastructures, and early warning systems, pay the highest price. In this sense, addressing geological risks also means confronting social injustices. Geoethics also teaches us to look to the future. Anthropogenic global changes, combined with the natural geological processes, are amplifying the frequency and intensity of certain extreme events. It is therefore imperative that our risk management is oriented not only towards immediate protection, but also towards building long-term resilience. We must invest in education, awareness, and technologies that enable us to prevent and mitigate the impacts of future geological events. In conclusion, geoethics invites us to consider that in addition to a scientific technical response, geological risks requires a human response, grounded in responsibility, respect, and justice. It is our duty as scientists, but also as citizens, to do everything possible to protect people and our planet by making ethical decisions informed by scientific knowledge. Our commitment cannot be solely technical. It must be also ethical. Only with an ethical approach to geological risk management can we hope to reduce losses, save lives, and build a more resilient and just society. At the same time, we must always remember that our duty is to provide verified data and well-informed scenarios to those who are in charge to make decisions. Geoscientists are not decision makers. In the risk decision chain, roles and responsibilities of each actor involved have to be clearly fixed. A team deeply intertwined with geoethics, shaping our present and future, is climate change. Today, more than ever, we are aware that our planet is undergoing dramatic and irreversible anthropogenic transformation. Global warming, glacier melting, glacier melting, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events such as hurricanes, droughts, and floods are just some visible effects of a climate crisis that we can no longer ignore. These phenomena have devastating impacts not only on the environment but also on human societies, endangering the livelihoods and security of millions around the world. In the face of this global challenge, what role can geoethics play? What ethical principles should guide us in addressing this crisis with responsibility and justice? Geoethics provides a lens through which we can view climate change more consciously and responsibly. Once again, geoethics reminds us that the geological disciplines are not merely tools for understanding the Earth, but also guides for making ethical decisions about how we manage our planet and its dynamics. First, geoethics emphasizes the principle of collective responsibility. Climate change is not only a scientific issue, but also an ethical one. The global community has a duty to address the causes of climate change, particularly greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel use, deforestation, and other unsustainable practices. These require immediate and decisive action from governments, institutions, and each of us as citizens of the world, taking into account the skills and personal capabilities of each individual. However, addressing the climate crisis also means recognizing that not everyone is affected equally. Social and economic inequalities play a central role in how the impacts of climate change are distributed. The poorest and most vulnerable communities, which often contribute the least to global emissions, suffer the greatest damage, whether through destroyed crops, homes swept away by floods, or diseases spreading due to extreme temperatures. Geoethics urges us to consider not only the environmental concerns, but also the human rights and climate justice, ensuring that the most vulnerable population receive the necessary support to adapt to ongoing changes. And this implies clear political decisions in clearly defined directions. Another fundamental aspect related to climate change is the principle of sustainability. As already mentioned, Geoethics teaches us about the finiteness of Earth's resources and emphasizes that our usage must take future generations into account. We cannot continue to exploit the planet without considering the long-term consequences. The adoption of clean technologies, energy efficiency, and the transition to a low-carbon economy are choices that must be guided by a deep sense of responsibility for the future of our planet. Climate science plays an essential role in this context, providing the necessary knowledge to understand Earth's dynamics, to propose scenarios, and to identify solutions to address the climate crisis. Yet, as Geoethics reminds us, science alone is insufficient. It is essential that this scientific knowledge be communicated transparently and accessibly, ensuring that political and social decisions are grounded in scientific facts rather than short-term interests or misinformation. Geoscientists have an ethical obligation to clearly communicate the risks of climate change and to collaborate with society in finding practical, sustainable solutions. We should also recognize that many colleagues may find themselves in conflict professional situations, particularly those working in polluting industries. And this requires a clear and mandatory regulations. In relation to climate change, Geoethics also underscores the importance of an intergenerational approach. The choices we make today will have lasting impacts on future generations, and we must act not only with our immediate well-being in mind, but also with consideration for our children, grandchildren, and those who will come after them. This principle of intergenerational justice is essential for building a sustainable and secure future for all. And finally, international cooperation is a key tenet for geoscientists of geoethics. Climate change is a global challenge that requires a global response. No country can tackle this crisis alone. Only through collaboration among nations, scientific communities, and civil society can we hope to find effective solutions. Geoethics encourages us to transcend national interests and work together for the common good, recognizing that we all share the same planet. In conclusion, Geoethics provides an ethical compass at this critical moment in human history, reminding us that addressing climate change is not merely a technical or economic issue, but again, it is an ethical commitment that demands responsibility, justice, and solidarity. It is up to us to make informed, responsible decisions guided by a profound respect for our planet and all of humanity. From this perspective, Geoethics teaches us a mindset and a way of living, also while cooperating on transnational projects. Finally, I would like to address another fundamental issue for the future of our planet, which is included in the topics of this meeting, and that is the preservation of natural and cultural heritage sites and the role that geoethics plays in this crucial field. Our planet is rich in natural and cultural wonders, serving as unique testimonies to the history of the Earth and human civilizations. Natural heritage sites such as rainforests, coral reefs, deserts, mountains are treasures of geodiversity, biodiversity, and ecological complexity. They offer us not only beauty and resources, but also a delicate balance that sustains life itself. Similarly, cultural heritage sites like ancient cities, temples, monuments, and archaeological landscapes tell us the stories of human societies, their beliefs, their arts and technologies, as well as the relationships between humans and the physical environment. Today, however, these sites are under threat. Pressures from urbanization, resource extraction, climate change, and mass tourism are eroding this precious heritage. The question we must answer is clear. How can we protect these sites and ensure they are passed on to future generations while continuing to use them? The answer can once again be found in the field of geoethics, which provides us not only with an ethical framework, but also with a guide for concrete and responsible action toward the environment and cultural heritage. Geoethics invites us to view the earth not merely as a resource to be exploited, but as a common good to be protected, respecting both people and the places around us. When we confronted with the natural and cultural sites of extraordinary value, we have an ethical responsibility to protect them while using them. These places do not belong solely to us or to our generation. They are the legacy of millions of years of natural evolution and thousands of years of human history. We must act as guardians of this heritage, making choices that ensure its integrity for the long term. But responsibility does not lie solely with scientists, governments, and institutions. We as individuals also have a role to play. Consider tourism, which can be an opportunity to raise awareness of these sites, but can also harm them if not managed properly. Geoethics urges us to rethink how we interact with the place we visit. We must be respectful travelers, aware of the impact of our action. So each individual interacting with this heritage must be aware of the impact of his, her own actions. And I invite again to read the white paper on speleological tourism released by the International Association for Promoting Geoethics. Once again, the concept of intergenerational justice comes into play. How can we ensure that these sites are preserved for future generations? Geoethics invite us to view the conservation of natural and cultural heritage as an investment in the future of humanity. If we continue to exploit these resources without limits, we destroy our own legacy and deprive future generations of the chance to know and appreciate these places from an educational, cultural, and aesthetic perspective. Sustainable management is another key principle of geoethics that is essential in protecting this natural and cultural heritage. We cannot afford to treat these sites as infinite resources. Preserving a geopark or an archaeological site requires careful long-term planning that considers ecological balance and respects local communities. Geoethics remind us that populations living near these sites must be involved in the decision-making processes, as they are often the first to suffer the negative effects of heritage destruction. Another fundamental aspect is respect for indigenous cultures and traditions. Many cultural heritage sites are not only historical monuments, but also sacred or symbolic places for the communities that inhabit them. Geoethics teaches us to treat these sites with the appropriate sensitivity, recognizing their cultural and spiritual value. Any intervention, whether tourism-related, scientific, or economic, must respect the traditions and rights of local and indigenous communities. Moreover, scientific knowledge is essential for preserving these sites. Geologists, archaeologists, and historians have the responsibility to study and document our heritage, providing data-driven solutions for its conservation. However, science must go hand in hand with ethics. Scientific discoveries cannot justify indiscriminate exploitation or mass tourism. Knowledge must be a tool for protection and not for destruction. Finally, we must not forget that climate change also poses a significant threat to natural and cultural heritage. Rising sea levels, desertification, and extreme weather events are destroying ecosystems and historical sites around the world. Geoethics calls upon us to tackle this challenge with urgency and determination, adopting global policies to reduce emissions and protect the most vulnerable places. In conclusion, Geoethics provides us with a theoretical and practical guide to address the challenges related to the preservation of natural and cultural heritage, and it reminds us that we are all responsible for protecting these irreplaceable treasures, which tell the story of our planet and our civilization. And we must act with responsibility, respect, and foresight, ensuring that these wonders continue to exist and inspire future generations. Well, I conclude. Obviously, there would be many other themes in geoethics that would be worth examining. For this video, I have chosen 4 among these topics proposed for this second event in Brazil dedicated to geoethics, and I hope I have offered some valuable insights to stimulate your discussion. For all other topics covered by geoethics, as well as for further insights on the 4 themes I have just outlined, I direct you to the IAPG website. Those who are interested can find many resources, articles, reports, and books on several issues, many of which are available for free download. And I also invite anyone who wants to submit articles on geoethics to consider the Journal of Geoethics and Social Geosciences, that is a Diamond open access journal. And so it is completely free for both readers and authors. So take into consideration to publish your articles in this journal. So I thank you for your attention, and I wish you a good continuation of this event.